Committee, Public Safety Committee is now in session. We have Council Members Parks, Councilmember Reyes, Councilmember Zine, and myself present. And items number 2, 3, 4, and 6, 2, 3, 4 are consent. No, I'm sorry. We'll start over again. 2 and 3 are consent. Numbers 4 and 6 will be continued. We will accept the CAO recommendations on number 5. And with that, we'll hear items number 1 and 7. And number 1, we have a report that's been presented by the fire department. As you'll recall, members, there were 2 issues last week that we asked them to take a look at. After review and meeting with the applicants last week, there were 2 changes, so 1 change actually. So
Could I just ask one question on 3?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the on number 3, just as a wording, is that on the issue of dealing with the on page 2, it didn't make sense when we talked about having these roosters on movie sets, and we allowed for even if they create a health hazard, which didn't make sense.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, so that's why I just wanted to clarify, because the way it's worded, it gives somewhat of a, it says that roosters creating a nuisance or health hazard will be removed from the city at the completion of each workday. You say, well, it seems like we wouldn't have them if they were creating a health hazard. So that was one bit of language on 3 that it seems like we need to clarify.
Do you want to hold that and have them report back on that next week?
Yeah, that one
All right,
piece, I think we need that clarified.
We'll continue this to next. Department's here. Linda, you want to come up? We're moving back into item number 3 then.
Yes. It was just that one sentence on health hazard did not appear to make sense to me that we would even allow what appears to be a health hazard on a movie set.
Yeah, I see what you mean in paragraph B.
Your name, please. Your name?
I'm sorry, Linda Barth from the Department of Animal Services. Yeah, I think that the language might have been picked up from the paragraph below, which is that no one can have a permit for an additional rooster if it creates a nuisance or a health hazard. Yeah. So even if they apply for a permit, they can't get one in that particular case.
Seems like we'd be saying a nuisance as opposed to a health hazard.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that might be a...
Basha Jankowski, City Attorney's Office. I'm here for Deb Lassell, who drafted the ordinance. He'll be back on Monday, so I'll definitely point this out and then get it, I guess, amended before it goes to council.
Yeah. Seems like we could move it, but ask them to look at that amendment, because at least the way I'm reading it, it seems like we're putting ourselves in...
So would you like Deb to bring it back here before it goes to council? Okay. Yeah. I'll let him know.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Great catch. Thank you.
On 5, okay. Thank you very much. That will be moved to council with a request to clarify before council. And then Mr. Reyes does have a question on number 5, so let's take up number 5.
Just, in the report on number 5, there's reference to many agencies and how this is being coordinated, but I don't see the Los Angeles Police Department also involved in that coordination. Can anyone speak to that? Given our understandings of personnel that's supposed to be in the airport and not in the airport, I just want to get some clarification there. Is there any coordination with the Los Angeles Police Department on that effort? Good morning, Harry.
Really no, Councilman, to be honest with you.
Actually, this is a grant for probably through,
the communications center, right?
Yeah, it's through, but it's probably through Homeland Security unit in the mayor's office.
Mayor's office, yeah.
In the airport. So they
on the mic, that one's not working. And state your name, please.
No, he's not up yet. This is.
Oh,
sorry. This is number 5.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the airport grant.
Yes.
Okay. Not fire department. So there's no one here from the mayor's office?
The staff were here, and when it was consented, they just left.
Okay.
Do you want me to try and get someone back?
No, that's all right. I can find out.
We'll find out, and we'll see if we can clarify before it gets there.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Harry.
Then back to number 1.
Item 1, Board of Fire Commissioners report relative to the Fire Department's 2008 brush clearance assessment hearings report and proposed appeal decision and recommendations.
Janet Jackson, City Attorney's Office.
Craig Fry, Acting Fire Marshal for the city.
Robert Knight, Captain, Fire Department, Rescue.
Captain, you had just two issues remaining, as I recall.
Yes, sir, that's correct. The first one was Mrs. Linda Turner. She is the lady who came and said that she had financial hardship and that her only source of income was the Social Security. She didn't provide that at the time of the hearing. We contacted her. She did provide that information to us. It appears that is her only source of income, so by recommendation, we waived her.
Okay, thank you.
The second one was Ms. Charlotte Reed, who said there was a confusion of her property lines, where she said that she believed her property was part of Los Angeles County, which is West Hollywood. We reviewed her file thoroughly. She actually owns several properties in the area. Some are in West Hollywood. However, the property she was cited for, which was the subject property we were discussing, was in fact in the city of Los Angeles. Hazards were there. We walked the property with her to the Board of Inspectors. We went over the measurements with her several times. She now agrees she's going to pay her fee.
Okay. When you do these kind of things that we have to clarify for them their property lines, now they know, do we make a notation on the file so they can't come back next year and do the same thing again?
Absolutely.
So it never happens again. Great.
It's all documented in our file.
Any questions?
I was just wondering, what do we do as a safeguard? Because most of these come up with people that are disputing they got the mail. Other than posting the property, do we have any other alternatives to address the mail issue?
We do a search with LexisNexis agents and the county assessors, and if they all three match, we go forward with that as being the proper mailing address. Many times property owners change their mailing address several times, move. That's one of the flaws pretty much in the system.
Then we post the property.
Yes.
Do we ever get any response if it goes to the wrong address, that somebody returns it and says wrong address?
Yes.
Okay, and then how do we then reconcile that?
We go back and do another search to see if we can find a supplemental address or some sort where we can try to track the actual property owner down. Sometimes some things get hung up until the following season, but
So it's a matter of how soon they update the computer as to your access to it.
Correct. That's all we have to go on.
Okay. Any other questions? We have a motion for approval?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, we do have one speaker card. Dr. Clyde Williams.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA. Speaking primarily as to the consistency of application of liens for brush clearance. Right now, there are a large number of lots which have not been cleaned even now. We're monitoring several of them to see when they are eventually required to be cleaned, either by the city or by the owners. However, it's a question as to a lot of little guys that have maybe 1, 2, 3 lots are doing their job adequately. But the big ones were concerned about big users, big owners that have large areas, a lot of areas within 200 feet of existing structures, residential, and that are not being cleaned in a timely fashion. Let us take, for example, Sepulveda. It was a fire started by brush clearance. And this is a problem. Who has to pay for this? Is it incorporated into any lien against the owners or any expenses to the owners? I have 11 acres of open space on my backside. I love it, except for one thing. Come the end of May, I have 11 acres of grass and tall brush that I fear. So we clear it ourselves because we don't want to wait until the owner of 11 acres has been cited, brought to a hearing such as here, put liens against them. By that time, maybe my house is already on fire. So we clear it for him. Now, we're concerned about application of consistency. Do all of the parcels get cleared in a timely fashion, and do all of the parcels get a lien against them for clearance? Thank you.
Chief?
Councilman, Assistant Chief Craig Fry. We've met with the doctor on several occasions, and I will just come back and say we inspect and we'll cite over 130,000 parcels in the city of Los Angeles. Our application is fair and equitable. Our clearance is done in a timely manner as outlined in our rules and regulations as established by the brush code. There are some that people do feel that take a long time, but that is part of the judicial system that we work within. Some of the issues that people have is they feel that I'll take example the 11 acres that the doctor states. We do not require them to clear all 11 acres. We require them to clear what is mandated in our rules. 200 feet from a structure, 10 feet from a roadway, and any major hazards we will address. As I've stated with the doctor before, we've made ourselves available to address any situation that he is concerned with, and as we would with any citizen in our community. So if anybody has any concerns, our brush unit would be willing to discuss and explain any particular item that they would like.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor, no opposition. It moves forward. Thank you very much. Appreciate your work. Item number 7.
Item 7, motion Zion Smith, directing the Police Department and the Department of Transportation to report relative to the financial viability of Nestor Traffic Systems and the effect of any bankruptcy filing by Nestor on city photo red light contracts, the steps required to conduct an expedited request for proposals should it become necessary to select a new contractor to operate the photo red light program.
Chief, or whom?
You ready? Well, good morning. Let me make some quick introductions first before we start. My name is Deputy Chief Richard Rapoli. I'm the Commanding Officer of Special Operations Bureau. With me today from the City Attorney's Office is Terry Martin Brown and Wendy Liu, and I also brought 2 subject matter experts with respect to photo red light, Sergeant Matthew McWillie from Emergency Operations Division and Glenn Orgura from Department of Transportation. I know this is a verbal report, and what I'd like to do is start off just to let you know where we are, the Department and DOT, with respect to Nestor's productivity, their responsiveness. From there, we'll go into the City Attorney and talk about the receivership. Okay? With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant McWillie just to talk about Nestor's productivity and responsiveness, if you would.
Thank you, Chief. As of June 30th, 2009, the officers assigned to the photo red light program have reviewed 25,182 total violations and have issued 20,269 citations. The program is at an all-time high. We're at an 80.5% citation issuance rate for the first 6 months.
What's the percentage?
80.5 citation issuance rate for the first 6 months of 2009. One of the things I'd like to point out is that we've seen an increase in the number of citations starting in the first quarter of 2009. In January of 2009, we were at 2,674 citations. In February, we were at 2,644. We saw a big increase in April and May of 2009, which topped the 4,000 mark, and then in July of 2009, or excuse me, June of 2009, we were at 4,199 citations. Overall, the program seems to be working well. The receivership has been transparent. There's been no issues with court issues. There's been no issues with the number of citations that are being reviewed. In fact, we've had a big increase in the number of citations that have been reviewed over the last several months since Nestor has gone into receivership. And overall, the program seems to be working fine.
If you would, Sergeant, talk about the change in leadership, new CEO, et cetera, at the top. of Nestor?
In November of 2007, Nestor had a change of leadership, and a new CEO was brought in. And at that particular point, our citation issuance rate was roughly about between 50 and 60%. With the new leadership at Nestor, a strategic plan was developed. A 9-point strategic plan was implemented, and as a result, we've seen an increase of our citation issuance rate increase from at least 60% to go to an all-time high of 82.0%. With the change of leadership, we've had a good working relationship with Nestor Traffic Systems and the City of Los Angeles. We have weekly meetings with our program manager. Once a month, the CEO of Nestor Traffic Systems and his staff flies out from East Coast and sits down with myself, Glenn, and the city attorney to address any issues that the city has. Nestor Traffic System has put $500,000 worth of upgrades into the city's program, and due to the fact that we have a good, strong partnership between us and Nestor Traffic Systems, our program is at the highest it's been since it started, and it's one of the highest in the state of California.
Glenn, anything to add? Okay. We'll turn over to the city attorney. Terry?
Good morning. Nestor recently filed a receivership in state court in the state of Rhode Island. A receivership is similar to, but very different from, a bankruptcy. Our bankruptcy counsel, Wendy Liu, can address some of the differences, although her expertise is in the area of bankruptcy and not in receiverships. But basically, a receivership means that the receiver appointed by the court, the state court, can either sell the company and the company can continue doing business, which is the current hope on both sides. Nestor wants to do that, the current management, and I think perhaps it would work best for the city with the facts as we know them, with their performance level being what it is today. The other possibility that is perhaps more concernful is that the receiver could just begin to sell off the assets of the business in order to pay the debts and satisfy the creditors. I met recently with one of the attorneys, general counsel attorneys for Nestor last week, and she indicated, I asked if there were any offers on the table at present, because I'd been told that Nestor was going to, the receiver for Nestor was going to entertain all reasonable offers for purchase. She said that she did not know that there were any definite offers on the table. I asked when she thought the receiver would be making a decision or presenting something to the court for the court to decide, and she said that within about approximately 90 days. So it could be a little bit more than 90 days, and if we're fortunate, it could be less, but I would assume it's not going to be, we're not going to really hear anything definite in any less than 90 days.
That's all.
Questions?
Okay, thank you. Questions? I know Mr. Zine does.
I have a few. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I have regarding the leadership, we started this arrangement with Nestor in 2006, and new leadership came in place in 2007, November 2007. We had a 50 to 60% issue rate. How did new leadership take the issue rate to where we are today? What would the leadership have to do with the enforcement of people running red lights?
Well, one of the first things, like I had mentioned earlier, Councilman Zine, is that Nestor Traffic Systems, specifically the CEO, Mr. Clarence Davis, at that particular time, developed a 9-point strategic plan and put it in writing exactly what he was going to do for the city and for the city's program. And one of the things that they outlined is they outlined what intersections were not working properly. They looked at the camera configurations. They developed weekly meetings between Nestor staff and the West Coast director. They committed an IT staff to work on changing out cameras and upgrading the camera configurations at the intersections, training the processors, and just overall working together and implemented or put together basically $500,000 worth of upgrades for the city's program. And with all of that, and working together and sitting down with the CEO and looking at weekly percentages at each of the intersections, myself and Glenn Agura were able to look at the percentages and look at the camera configurations and finding out what things were working properly and what weren't. And the things that were not working properly, obviously, we focused on those intersections, and as a result, we were able to make changes at those intersections, and that has all helped to improve the citation issuance rate.
So we now have 32 intersections in operation?
Yes, sir.
And of the 32, how many of those are the original 32, or not the original 32? We originally scheduled for 32 specific locations. Have we changed any of the 32 originally scheduled locations to different locations?
Well, we had 16 intersections with the old program. Out of that, 9 intersections were retrofitted with the new camera system. 23 new intersections were selected. And since the first intersection went online on April 4th in 2006, we've issued over 96,138 citations. In fact, the Photo Red Light program issues 20% of all moving violations issued by LAPD. And one of the things...
for the motor cops.
Well, no. But I want to stress that this particular program is a traffic safety program, and we've seen a reduction of traffic collisions of our 32 intersections. In 2006, we saw a 12% reduction. In 2007, we saw a 5% reduction. And then in 2008, we saw a 2.7% reduction. So the program is doing exactly what it's intended to do. It's designed to change driver behavior, and it's designed to reduce traffic collisions at our intersections. And also, I want to point out, we've had no fatalities at any of these 32 intersections. So the cost of the program has basically paid for itself right there, then and there.
So DOT tabulates the locations, and then DOT works with the police department to figure out where we're going to put these based upon the A and K picture.
What DOT did was we worked with LAPD in determining which intersections should be selected as far as crash history, collision history, and what we were trying to do was deal with the most severe type of collision, which is right angle. And so we looked at that history and also what causes those accidents. The other thing to expand on what Sergeant McWillie said is that in working with Nestor, when we met with them once a week, we literally went through every single intersection and said, what are the problems that we're having? What are you doing to correct them? It has really forced them to look at what they have. They have replaced an awful lot of their cameras. They had older cameras that were not working as well. They've actually upgraded, put in new cameras, and each week we sit with them for the last 18 months. And that's why they have actually had to step up to the plate to really improve the program, because they realize that this is their marquee program. If they don't do well with the City of Los Angeles, they won't do well in bidding on any other projects.
Councilman Zine, just two quick comments. If I remember correctly, the compliance rate across the country is about 50 or 60%. These two gentlemen to my far right are responsible, in my opinion, for Nestor rising to that 80% level. The pressure they put on them in the best interest of the city has been absolutely phenomenal. And because of that, I think we're seeing now that 80% compliance rate. We're seeing reduction in traffic collisions and some of the other benefits that the city is experiencing with respect to the Photo Red Light program.
I'm a strong believer in the program. I've always believed in the program. I had concerns about the company that was operating the program, so I never disputed the fact I thought it would work. Just as video cameras in the cars, I'm a strong supporter of those. If we look at our A and K pictures citywide, how are we looking at A and K citywide?
Overall, A and K pictures were down 10% as compared to last year. In 2007, we had 1,102 serious injury-related traffic collisions, as compared to 990 in 2008, which is a 10% decrease. As far as fatality traffic collisions are concerned, we had 198 in 2007 and 188 in 2008 for a 5% decrease. And also, I'd like to point out that red light-related traffic collisions are also down citywide by about 21%.
188 citywide on the fatals?
198 versus 188.
Citywide.
Yes, sir.
Because those numbers are down dramatically from the past. Because as I recall, in the valley, there used to be over 100 people killed in crashes.
Yes.
Every year.
Yes.
Just the valley. Obviously, there's been, those motor cops are doing a hell of a job, I have to say. Something's working.
That and automated enforcement, it works when the motor cops go home and have a beer.
I won't dispute that.
In that order.
You used to be a motor cop, didn't you, Sergeant?
We both did, sir.
Those were the good old days. Now, the question on the $33 million debt, and you mentioned 90 days, what happens with that debt? And at this particular time, the courts have that into receivership. The revenues that are being generated from the fines, does that come to the city and then we pay them, or does it go to them and they pay us on the revenue aspect of it? And how that relates to the $33 million debt that Nestor has?
Well, I'm not quite sure what you're asking, sir. Can you?
Someone gets a ticket. That ticket then gets processed, you get mailed the citation that your fine is so much. Does the fine come to the city, or does the fine go to them? In other words, how do they get paid? How do we get paid?
Okay. Well, the cost of a photo red light citation is $436, and that's the total fine. That includes traffic school. But the share is broken down 3 different ways. The city, state, and county all gets a share. Out of that $436, the city share is $148.37. The state share is $219.40, and the county share is $68.23. And that's all tied to SB 1407 that was passed this year and became law effective January 1st, 2009.
So we run the program, and the state gets $219 of the program that we run.
Yes.
And they still can't get a budget. Amazing. So the court sends out to the violator the citation, they receive the citation a certain date, etc. Then the violator sends that into the court, and then it's the city that pays Nestor. In other words, how does Nestor get paid?
Well, how it works is Nestor gets paid by a monthly billing invoice. They don't get paid based on a citation basis. That's illegal per the California Vehicle Code. Nestor has agreed to a flat fee of $8,125 per intersection per month, and they send a monthly billing invoice to the city, which is then reviewed by me and then sent back to Fiscal Operations Division, who then cuts the check to Nestor Traffic Systems.
Okay, so if we write 100, if we get 100 violations at an intersection or 1,000 violations at an intersection, they get the same amount of money either way.
That's correct, sir.
So there's no revenue generation for them by production.
That's correct.
Okay, so that keeps that part clear. So we send them the money. So are we sending them the money now, or does the money go to the court since they're in receivership?
Their monthly billing invoice is not changed.
Okay.
Okay. And so what they bill the city of Los Angeles is separate from traffic violations. They're 2 separate different entities.
Right.
We will still continue to receive invoices from Nestor Traffic Systems. They will be reviewed by myself, and then based on the percentage of each of the intersections, I then computate what they should get paid for that particular invoice for that particular month, and that's then forwarded back to Fiscal Operations Division, who then cuts the check to Nestor Traffic Systems.
Okay, so I'm understanding correctly. They get paid a flat fee. They don't get paid by the number of citations?
That's correct.
Okay, so there's $8,000 some they get for each intersection.
That's correct.
Okay. So that money's going to Nestor. Now, for the city attorney, the $33 million debt that they have, how is that being taken care of? Or is it being taken care of? Not that we're going to pay it, but how do they, because normally, I assume on a receivership that money will go to the court. It's not going to the court. So how are they maintaining their books and taking care of the debt they have with their receivership?
The permanent receiver, it's my understanding that the permanent receiver that has been appointed by the court is basically directing the affairs of Nestor. So I would assume that any accounts receivable payments that they receive they have to report to this receiver,
Okay.
who's managing their finances at this point in time, and the receiver is then accountable for reporting to the court.
The court. Okay, so we send it to Nestor. Nestor gives the receiver, if that's the case, and then they deal with the court. Now, what about the situation if they sell the company? Are we still obligated to maintain the relationship with them under the contract? Because we're in this contract, I think, Sergeant, please correct me if I'm wrong, until next year, 2010?
April 4th.
April 2010.
The idea, I guess, would be that if they sell the company in its entirety, sell it as an entity, and that is their hope, to be able to do that, the new company, assuming that it would be acceptable to the city, the benefits and obligations under the contract would be assigned to that new company. And if the city agrees to that, then we could continue doing business with whichever entity it is that replaces Nestor, basically, that buys the company.
But we'd have the choice if we want to do that or not. We wouldn't automatically be forced for that.
We are not automatically forced to do that. I mean, we can certainly terminate the contract at that point in time if we thought that, for a number of reasons, I imagine, if we weren't going to get the same level of service, if the company we felt wasn't going to be a responsible entity, wasn't able to fulfill the obligations of the agreement, for any number of reasons which we would have to evaluate at that point in time if the sale was made.
I just have one more question. How many other cities are using Nestor for their photo red light?
There's 14 municipalities in California, and speed enforcement to 16 others in Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Maryland, Ohio, and Texas, and 2 in Canada, sir.
Okay. And as far as the police department's concerned and DOT is concerned, you feel comfortable with the operations that are taking place currently with Nestor and the relationship that's established between the city of LA and Nestor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Just on those last couple of points, what would be the time frame and process if we chose to, if they were, say, sell off, split the company up, whatever, there's some process that we just don't want to go there with Nestor as it comes out of receivership into some other hands. What would be the process? We have to go out to a new RFP then? And if we did that, is the equipment on the poles now ours or theirs?
But the equipment on the pole belongs to Nestor Traffic Systems, so if Nestor is sold off to, say, another photo red light company, the equipment is not compatible, so it would have to be taken down and retrofitted with new equipment. So it would take a long period of time for that to take place, and I'll let Glenn speak a little bit about that.
Since the equipment that Nestor has is not ours, we'd have to remove their equipment and give it back to them, and then we'd have to go through a whole new process of doing design and construction if we picked another vendor to replace Nestor. That could take upwards of 2 years. Okay. And during that time, we've lost our traffic safety program.
And to answer your question, Councilman Smith, it would take roughly about 18 to 24 months to go through an RFP process. That would be an expedited RFP, so it would take a long period of time, and so that would be 18 to 24 months that the city would not be getting any revenue, and we wouldn't see a reduction of traffic collisions at any of our intersections.
Could we choose to give notice that we do not wish to proceed on the 2010 contract and issue an RFP in 2009 then in preparation for that if we chose to?
We do have that option, sir.
Okay. So we need to be watching this closely for a short period of time to see where it goes. If we're going to go in another direction, we need to make those choices in the next 6 months, probably.
That's correct.
At least. And one last question: what was the collection rate on those sites? Yeah, up to 80% now.
How many citations total since the program was 96,138 citations. Revenue in 2007 was 1.4 million. In 2008, it was 4.2 million.
Okay. So it's getting better, although it stumbled out of the blocks. And I think, Mr. Zine and I were the 2 negative votes on this. We didn't think it was the best contract the city could have gotten, but that's water under the bridge now. The question is, where do we go in the future? So I think we understand the process. Any other questions, Mr. Parks?
Let me just ask one. We had talked a while back about, as they went from, 16 to 32 and all that, there was going to be at some point another phase. Is that still in the works to expand, or is that now on hold, or just we're as far as additional intersections?
Well, we'd like to expand by 4 additional intersections, but I think Terry Martin Brown needs to speak on that one.
Even if it's not with this company, that's still the plan?
The plan is to expand the program by 4 additional intersections. Next time around, we would like to expand from 32 to 64 intersections.
And sir, that's...
On the next RFP, whether it's with them or someone else?
Exactly, sir.
And we're getting into some contract negotiations, which probably this isn't the proper forum to discuss.
I just wanted to find out where we were on the next phase, because I know we've talked about it, and with all this complication, whether we're still in that mode.
Mr. Reyes? Okay, if it pleases the committee, I would ask that we keep conformed on this. We'll hold it in committee, have a report back on August 4th, the last meeting before, well...
August, you're scheduled to meet on August 3rd and August 10th.
August 10th?
Before the break.
Yeah, I won't be here August 10th, but we can
August
still
3rd?
have that. Let's have it in August 10th anyway.
Okay.
And then the first meeting in September. If you can give us just an update and ask the CLA and CAO also to look into these. I know you have some issues. I think we got them answered today, but continue to monitor from a legal point of view where we are. So if we have to pull the trigger at some point, we can do that. All right. Thank you very much. That ends today's agenda. We have one public comment. Is Dr. Williams back? He was in and out. Dr. Williams is not here. And therefore, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Well, yeah.
What happened is
it should be finishing today.
the CLA, which is a concern.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
The other issue was